Welcome to Let's Talk Franchising, the podcast where we break down everything you need to know to turn your business into a thriving franchise, sell more franchise units, or just become a true franchise expert. I'm Susana Hands, your guide on this journey where we cut through the jargon, share real stories, expert tips, and inside strategies that actually works. Whether you're dreaming about franchising your business, stuck struggling to sell franchises, or simply hungry to learn the secrets of franchise success, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode. Let's talk franchising. Welcome to today's show. I'm thrilled to be joined by a true entrepreneur and empire builder, Jim Penman, founder of Jim's Group. From a single mowing business to a nationwide franchise phenomenon. Jim's bold vision, grit, and knack for turning everyday services into a powerhouse brand have rewired how people think about small businesses. He's written several books about his struggles and lessons in franchising, and he's here to share his stories, the moves that turned hassle into legacy, and the candid advice you won't hear anywhere else. Expect surprising insights and a few laughs along the way. Jim, welcome to our podcast. So thank you very much, Jim, for accepting to be part of my podcast. Have you heard of me before, or is this the first time?
First time.
Ah, lovely. Okay, well, I've known of you a very long time. I've been a follower of yours for a very long time and, read your books. And so I'm very, very blessed to have you here today. But for those of you that don't know, and obviously the audience that may not know you because this is going internationally, do you want to tell a little bit about your background, how you started in franchising? Because I know it's a long story, but I'm sure you can sum it up for me.
I've been gardening since I was 8 years old. I used to go across the back, the neighbour across the back fence, and I used to rake his driveways for 2 shillings back in those days. So that's way back. Did it for most of them when I was a kid. When I went to university in 1970, no, actually when I took a gap year in 1970 before going, I started a small gardening business, and that progressed through my university period. I just got myself started gardening, put my hook price a bit, got a lawnmower about 1975. Tended to be an academic. That was my idea, and the gardening was my part-time student job, which is good. It's healthy outdoors, paid pretty well. And in 1982, I found myself completely stymied, no academic career possibility, and so I really didn't know how to do anything else except mow lawns for a living. So I started then pretty well broke deeply in debt and just built from there. And 7 years later, I franchised it without any huge expectations. I thought maybe we'd have 100 franchisees when we started. That's what I told people I might achieve one day. And it's gone a bit better than I expected. A lot of blind alleys and mistakes and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. So you actually didn't plan to be in franchising. You kind of stumbled into it. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was my student job. I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to do a research program. And I was just completely unrealistic about what charts they... The theory that I had that was working was a kind of a general theory of history and society based on biology. And that's wildly unorthodox. Well, you told me you're insane to think you're going to get a job doing that. But also, the research I wanted to do was biological. It's all to do with neuroscience and stuff, which I had no training in. So I was completely delusional about my potential. So in 1982, when I was flat broke, I realized I want to continue my research, but to do that, I needed an awful lot of money, which, didn't have a PhD at that stage. I didn't even get it. They failed me on my first go. So it was this. I just need to go into business. I need to make a lot of money so I could continue with my research. That was the aim of it.
And did it work? Did you find that you made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, or?
Yeah, my whole career, Susana, is a history of terrible mistakes.
Can you sum it up? Was it expensive mistakes? Was it just learning mistakes? You obviously recovered from them, but...
Look, I look back on mistakes that I made as little as a couple of years back, which cost me millions. I mean, honestly, it's a whole shambling incompetence and stupid decisions. I don't even know how I succeeded in anything.
I love it. Well, you have been very successful and you've opened up many different brands under the Jim's Group. So something you've done is working. So is there something there you can share to people to say, it does work. Franchising does work. But what's the special sauce that you need to put into it to make it work?
The biggest thing of all is having a relentless focus on doing better. And that's something I do have. I'm never content. Every day of my life, I'm looking at my business and saying, how can I improve? I give my phone number and email address to every one of my franchisees, and they contact me. And I have multiple people a day contacting me about something or other. And I'm always listening and say, what's going wrong? What could we do better? How could we improve things? Is it technology? Is it systems? Is it contracts? Is it what? Training? What do we need to do? How do we need to improve? And that's probably more than anything. So I do a lot of stupid things, make a lot of dumb mistakes, choose the wrong people, go out the wrong pathways, but I'm always trying to do better. And I think in a way it's because we're so experimental. I'm always trying different things, that some of them work out very, very badly. If you keep on trying different things, eventually you hit upon some ideas that actually work.
They're very expensive exercises for somebody who's a startup franchise. So how do you navigate when you're starting into franchising? Money's not always, or they don't have access to a lot of funds. How do you get them to kind of?
Well, if you're a franchisee, what you start off by doing is following the system. And we have a pretty good track record. I mean, the statistics show if you go into a business like a tradie business, your chance of being in business at the end of 12 months is about 10%. The 90% will drop out. With us, dropout rate's about 12%. So 88% of our franchisees pass the first year. So what do? We train. First of all, we screen. That's a very important part of our system. We try and knock out people who are obviously unsuited. And there are some who just really shouldn't buy a business. Then we train. We have a very intensive training course, which has been going on this week, actually. And I speak at a couple of different sessions. I try and get to know people. So we learn from that. And then we have an ongoing system where we provide them with leads, and we're fairly good at that. We have a system called pay for work guarantee, which means if they don't have enough work, they can do free services or promotions, which get them more work. If they do that, that does work. And then we have a coaching system with a franchisor who can take their calls and who rings them regularly. And then we have meetings. And then you have technology, like our system we call Jimbo, which governs how they can run their business. So you have a whole series of things designed to help them to be successful. So essentially what people should do is they follow the system, and then within that system, ideally will start to experiment themselves and try different things and learn new tricks of the trade. And you never should stop learning. I've been in business, the same business essentially for, half a century, and I'm still learning.
And you're still enjoying it because you're still there. You don't have any plans on going anywhere anytime.
No, I love it. I've just turned 74 today, actually. It's my 74th birthday.
Birthday. That's very amazing. I've got you on your birthday on my show.
And I do expect, I don't expect to retire. I'm in very, very good health. My mind is sharp as anything. Look old, but I don't feel it. So I'll be around for another 20 years. I tell people that too in training. I say, look, this system is very tough on customer service people, but don't assume the only way it's ever going to become modified is if I am dead, I'm gone, and somebody else takes over who's not as fanatical as I am. But my health is really good. I expect to be around another 20 years, so just don't count on it.
And have you built a legacy that if that ever happens, which knock on wood, it never does, but do you have something that people feel comfortable that you've done enough to let somebody else to take over?
Well, yes, that's the idea, I guess. I mean, it's arranged. I've set it up in such a way. The one thing I most dread is that after I'm no longer around to protect my franchisees, somebody like, Retail Food Group, one of those, vulture capitalists come in and they rip the system off. They do it. They did it to other brands like Brumbies and so forth. They just come in and they say, okay, how can I screw more money out of my franchisees? And they do grossly unfair things. That's probably my worst nightmare. So what I've done is actually I've set up a family trust, like a board of directors. My family is involved, but also an elected member from the franchisees. They have a voice, the overall direction of the company. And there's also a clause in my franchise agreements that say that the controlling share of Jim's Group cannot be sold without the written consent of a majority of franchisees. Most franchisees actually had to agree in writing. And my CFO at the time said, you're just going to dramatically reduce the value of your business because it makes it unsellable. And I say, well, yes, that's good. That's what the intention is. I don't want it to be sold to somebody who will destroy my legacy by ripping my people off. I feel responsible for them.
And that's the best way of being, because I've met a lot of franchisors over the years, and a lot of them do things that is a one-sided thing, and which is really sad, because that's why franchisees feel like they're not heard and they don't have a voice and things like that. It's very lovely to hear that you actually do care so much about your franchisees. And that's probably a testament to how many you've got and the different roles you've got in each of them. Do you have any idea of how many more businesses you're going to bring on board or anything like that? Is that something you've ever thought of, or it's just an idea comes and you just go, yeah, that's a great idea, let's just jump it on under Jim's group?
Oh, one thing could have been, they're not really my ideas.
Thank you.
What happens if somebody comes to me and says they want to do something? There's very few divisions we've ever started ourselves. Mowing, of course. I think dog wash. What else would there be? Handyman, and maybe car detailing. But the great majority of divisions start because somebody comes to me and says, I've got this background. I mean, I get inquiries all the time. I would get, one or two a week. So we don't take very many. But then you got the right person with the right background, they start a new division. That's how it normally starts. Like one of our cleaning came up with the idea of Jim's Laundry a few years back. And he's a great guy. He's very successful in the cleaning area. So we said, okay, let's have a go. And he had 120 franchisees in his within 3 years. So that was just a good guy.
So do you back them with your IT, your systems and everything like that? They just come in with their ideas and they come in with, I'll do this part.
They've got to fund it. They've got to find the money. The whole system is very highly automated. We've got like all our contracts and disclosure documents and everything else, which is, it's a maze in Australia these days. But we have that's all online. That's all, you just punch the numbers in, the details in, it comes out. And all the way that the work is allocated, which is all very similar. Service industries are much the same. We don't go in to site-based. We're all service-based. So it's kind of very, very, all the back end is quite comparable. So all we need is somebody who understands that particular industry and takes responsibility for driving it.
And that's something that I always hear in the industry is there's so many things that people don't speak about that is a bit of a cringe moment in the franchising space. Is there something there, apart from you saying about the retail food group that takes on a lot of other brands, and is there anything else that you think that is very cringeworthy to sort of have in the franchising industry?
I think, look, there's some good franchisors around and there's some absolutely terrible ones. Absolutely shocking. I find the government's lack of real care and concern for franchisees to be appalling. But basically every time they do it, they just say, well, let's put another 1,000 pages of regulations on this and more. Like, give an example, our disclosure document, all right? This is the big protection. This is making franchisees safe. What rubbish. I've only ever heard of 3 franchisees ever who've read this thing. So this mountain of bureaucracy, which I admit, if you're a lawyer, it's fantastic. It's a feeding frenzy. So for lawyers, it's good. But as to protecting franchisees, it's nothing. Now, there's actually a very simple way to do this. When they started talking about franchising, I said, you should do what we do. And what we do is every year we poll our franchisees with a confidential survey, and we ask them questions about the service they're getting, their income level, not the amount, just but they're happy with it, good, satisfactory, poor, just the basic stuff. And we do that, we get in the system, we get about 90% response. We can then look at different franchisors and see who's doing really well, and then the ones that aren't. And most of them are doing pretty well, but there's a few that need to be kicked. We actually give them breach notices and we say, okay, you got to bring your franchise more regular, this kind of stuff. So what the government should have done, instead of this massive bureaucracy, this feeding frenzy for lawyers, they should have arranged it so that every year, every franchisor pays for a independent polling company to do the same thing. And then those results get put on the public website. Now, if you did that, you would have an incredible drive for franchisors to do the right thing. And the ones that rip people off would come out very quickly. Because bear in mind, it's anonymous, it's confidential. So the franchisors can't punish them because they don't know who's giving these answers. So then you have extraordinary ability to drive out the poor operators and protect franchisees. And the government says, no, that's not our priority. Franchisee protection, no, let's protect the lawyers. That's our real constituency, because that's in fact what they've done. Look, and even the disclosure document is so technically dense that most lawyers can't understand it. And if you wanted to rip people off blind, all you've got to do go into these hundreds of pages and put a little fine print there, knowing nobody's ever going to read it. But if they protest against you, you can say, oh, it's in the disclosure document, you should have read it, knowing perfectly well they won't read it. Stupid governments, stupid bureaucracy, stupid politicians, and just a lack of real care. Infuriating. I find that so... The stories that I hear about are so heart-rending. People put hundreds of thousands of dollars into buying a business, and the franchisors rip them off blind. There's no protection. There's no way they can really be protected against anything. And the government sits back and says, yeah, we've done our part. The lawyers are all happy. What do we care?
We keep the lawyers very happy and we keep them all in business, don't we?
Yes. Like, I'll give you an example. Every franchisee is supposed to get an opinion from a lawyer about the contract. Well, that is completely ridiculous because most lawyers don't understand franchise agreements anyway. They can't make a reasonable comparison. So what on earth does that mean? Except, as I said, more money for lawyers. Now, if you cared about franchisees generally, what you would say is that your franchisors should submit their contracts to a selected franchising lawyer who understands the difference between contracts. The franchisor should pay for that, not the potential franchisees. Why should each franchisee get an opinion? So the franchisors pay for that. Then anybody who's shown it gets and then a decent franchise lawyer would say, well, this is an unfair provision. This doesn't give you much protection, blah, 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 because they know what to look for. Now, here's a system that would be incredibly better for franchisees. They have it instantaneously. Instead of ignorant lawyers, I don't know what they're talking about, paying them, you do it properly. Why do they do it the way they do? Well, because it's better for the lawyers.
So is there any way you could change that?
Well, no, because the government's insistent. That's their aim. They want to protect the lawyers. They don't care about the franchisees. I mean, that's what they're saying in practice. That's not what they say. That's not the mouthing they make. I made this point every time they had these inquiries. Every time I said the same thing. Let's do something to protect franchisees properly, understand what they're coming from. But they don't do that. They don't speak to those people. They don't even know what franchisees think. I actually get on well with the Franchisees Association. We've got much the same attitude.
And you're a franchisor, which says a lot about you, which is amazing. Now, talking about franchisees, how do you work with, every brand has got a small amount of toxic franchisees. Let's face it, everyone's got some. They have strong opinions. They want to give you bad raps. How do you work with those who, one, don't engage in surveys if you're going to send them out, two, don't have anything positive to say, yet they're making lots of money? So how do you work with those people?
Oh, well, they'll respond to surveys like, the people who don't like what you're doing are certainly going to tell you about it. Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends. Sometimes you have people who are very noisy and sometimes they have a real point. Sometimes we do make mistakes or don't do the right thing and we've got to listen to them. So I don't assume anybody who's having a go at me is necessarily... I had a meeting with my divisional franchise. I had my divisions yesterday and, there was certain things we're doing that they didn't particularly like. It's to do with the way we pass jobs to different divisions and so forth. So I had to say, well, okay, I guess you're right. We'll change the way we do things. But that's legitimate.
And that's fine. And that's what I like about that. But, if you feel that you've got franchise, I mean, I've got a couple of brands that keep saying to me, I send out surveys. I just want their honest feedback, but they don't want to engage, whether they're sitting on the fence or they just don't want to be boisterous or they're just, don't know. But how do you get them engaging in the brand?
And we're very insistent. We send the surveys out and then we get the call center to ring them and we hassle them. Now, bear in mind, this is a survey that takes less than a minute to fill in. It's really, really quick. But you just have to chase them and chase them and chase them. So to find out, because it's really important, we know, and we do take action and we publish the results. So I think they basically do tell us. We certainly ask hard enough. Now, a lot of franchisees won't directly go against the franchisor in public because they're scared of the franchisor, which I think is exaggerated in our system. They're very strongly protected. But we do that. There's a lot of things in our contracts too that are very unusual. For example, our franchisees have the right to move to a different franchisor. It said, well, commonly you've got more than one franchisor in the same city, say. Like we had a case in cleaning in Sydney. There was 2 different regions. And what was happening was that the franchises from one region were transferring to the other region. And the reason was they weren't getting enough leads. So I spoke to the franchisor and I said, you're going to lose a lot of people if you don't fix this. So what he did was then up the advertising. So there's a lot of pressure on franchisors to do the right thing. You can even change to a different division. And your own franchisor has no say. You can also vote out your franchisor, simple majority vote, confidential vote. You can vote out your franchisor. And by the way, that applies to me to the extent I'm a franchisor. You can vote me out. So I'm in no different situation. So can you see that kind of stuff puts a lot of power in the hands of franchisees, and also the fact that a franchisee is not happy with the franchisor, they contact me. So just a couple of days ago, one of my new franchisees actually, he responded to I sent a letter after 1 month to all my new franchisees and really pressed them to respond. How are you going? This franchisee comes back and he says this thing is pay for work guarantee thing, which is where you can do the free services. My franchisor is discouraging me. So I got the divisional franchisor involved, and I sent a letter back first of all, I explained to this franchisee what he could do. I gave him all the services you can offer. I told him how he could do it, put him in touch with a local mowing franchisor so they can offer services to their people, because that's part of the system. And I wrote a very tough letter back to the franchisor saying, if you are found to discourage your franchisees from paying a pay for work guarantee, I will breach you and I will terminate you. So I basically threatened him.
It's a better way to do it, isn't it? And did it work?
Oh, this guy's going to claim now, I can assure you. Well, I scared him. But I mean, we think, I spoke to the divisional about it, and we're pretty convinced this wasn't a fake. This guy was really trying to discourage it, like saying, oh, you shouldn't claim it. But after hearing from me, and after this is going, and keep in touch with me, let him know how it goes, I think he'll change his tune. People don't want to upset me, really.
It's an interesting fact you said that, because I've worked for many different brands and I've always been on the franchise sales side of things. And so I only speak to people up until that point where they they sign their franchise agreement, off they go to the training department or the operations team where they get trained and so forth. But over the years, I still keep in contact with them and they still come to me and say, oh, such and such isn't working with me. Maybe the CEO isn't great, or maybe the franchise or that person just doesn't understand me. We just butt heads all the time. When I go and reach out to the brand and say, hey, you've got some franchisees who are not happy. They're saying something about, the people that are at the head office and so forth. They just don't want to listen, and they don't want to get rid of that person because it's too much work to get rid of that person to then put somebody else to kind of understand what they know or their knowledge. So how do you do that? I mean, you don't have a problem with getting rid of people if they're doing the wrong thing, right?
Yeah, well, mostly we get them to do the right thing. It's like, that's the aim. It's like customer service issues.
Yeah.
Franchisee gets a customer service problem, like a complaint. Franchisor speaks to them. Sometimes we delete the complaint because they fix it or because it's clearly not fair in the first place. But if they don't, then you coach them. What did you do wrong? Okay, you need to call back promptly. You're waiting too long. How are you handling your phone? And then that keeps going. Usually that's okay. But then if they keep on getting too many complaints, we send them a warning letter. And this is getting to be a bit tough when we explain what's going to happen if they continue. And then if they continue to do it, then we send a breach notice and they have to do retraining and they're cut off from work. And then every complaint comes to me. What normally happens in that process is that they start to pick up their socks. They improve. The great majority will actually work out what they're doing wrong, and it's a steadily escalating pressure until they say, no, I'd better start learning. And then there's a small minority that actually end up going. But not very common.
But at least you've got something in place to make franchisees know that, and they are heard, and they make a massive point, and you're there to fix it and obviously make a big difference, which is very powerful to have any franchisor that does what you do. So well done on that.
We also do make sure that if the franchisee is in the right, we will support them, because sometimes customers can be very unreasonable. The people say the customer is always right. Well, that's complete rubbish. Sometimes the customer is really trying to rip you off. They think, I'll just, make some sort of fuss about it, and this friend, they'll pay me up because they're afraid of bad publicity or because Jim's is such a big company, they've got plenty of money. But it's the franchisee that pays, not me anyway. So if the franchisee's in the right, for example, franchisee gives a quote to do a job, and which defines what it's to be done, like a vacate, clean, I'm going to do this job and this job and this job, I'll do the floors, I'll do whatever, okay? And then the customer says, oh, no, I want this, I want you to clean the walls down. And if you don't, I'll make a complaint. Well, the franchisee says, but this is the quote I gave you for doing this, and they show that to us. Now, that is proof that they've done what they should have done and the client's being unreasonable. So in situations where the customer is unfairly treating a franchisee, then we will back the franchisee 100% in every way.
And that's perfect. That's what people want to feel. That's why they're part of a system. They're part of a network, because you've got their back and you're going to call the spade a spades. If you're doing the wrong thing, you're going to call it. If they do the opposite side of things, you're going to call it, which I think is really powerful. And a lot of people should be listening to say, this is how you run a very big network, which is amazing. Is there a biggest myth about franchising that really needs to be put to bed?
I don't know. I don't know what myths there are. But I often respond to social media contents and they have some very bizarre ideas. Like, I don't go into Jim's franchise because they take 40% of your income in fees. It's around about 6%. So people just don't do their research.
So it's not knowing what you're actually getting into, which I think is yeah.
What I say to every prospective franchisee, do your homework. You get a list of franchisees, ring as many as possible, and then go on these sites like Reddit and so forth. But for heaven's sake, talk to somebody who's been doing it.
Yeah.
So if you often get a case where you get somebody make some of these stupid comments, Jim's takes 40% of your fees. And if you just listen to that, well, then you'd probably say, I won't buy a franchise. But if you actually followed that, often the franchises will jump on and say, no, that's not true. It's this amount here. That's how it works. And so you've got to get advice from somebody who's actually done it, rather than listening to somebody who's never done it. That's an important principle. It's one of the best ways to choose franchisees. If you've got somebody who's done their homework, you've got a smart cookie. That's some person you want. You want somebody who asks the tough questions, not afraid to research, goes online, checks you out. Whenever we see somebody who's actually been watching videos, and because we've got thousands of videos we make all the time, when somebody's done that and they know about you and they come to see you, you're thinking, wow, okay, now I've got somebody that's likely to be successful. I don't know, somebody who just listens to a spiel from a franchisor and doesn't do any checking, that's just foolish.
Yeah, that's
terrible systems around. There really are. And I'm not saying most are. I'm not even making a judgment. But, got to give you an example, McDonald's. McDonald's is absolutely disgusting food, and I won't let my children eat it, or I won't buy it for them. But I have to say, as franchisors, they are very good. They are very decent. They have a fair systems. They give good support. They're classically good franchisors. In the whole McCafe thing they did in Australia, it was actually a franchisee initiative. It wasn't McDonald's head office that did that. It was the franchisees. So they listened to them.
Absolutely. I've got an idea. A friend of mine came up to me and said, wouldn't it be great to have a mobile McDonald's going around? And I thought, oh, you're just spreading more McDonald's around the world. But wouldn't that be a great idea? A little bit of a...
Well, there's a lot of people who sell chips and hamburgers and all kinds of things on a mobile van. I get more excited by health. Honestly, what I'm really, really wanting to do is Jim's Healthy. We're planning towards that because I'm not a great cook. In fact, I'm a shocking cook. My wife's good, but she's busy. So I want to eat. Now, try and find a packaged food that meets my standards is very difficult because, you should have 5 serves of vegetables every day and serve is 75 grams, which means if you're eating a 350 gram meal, which is pretty typical, about half that should be vegetables. And it should be a variety of vegetables, and you shouldn't have too much sugar and too much salt. Now, I cannot find that anywhere. And I've tried lots of people. I've looked in the different supermarkets. I've looked at the different services. I can't find anything that meets my standards. So I'd really love to do Jim's Healthy. And then what we do is we deliver food that people can actually, is going to extend your life. Because, I'm 74 today and I'm super healthy. And a large part of it is simply exercise and diet. And so people don't get enough vegetables.
Is this the announcement of there's going to be a wellness Jim's group going out soon?
Well, I've been talking about it for a long time. It's more the case of finding the right people to help us with. I've been trying for the last year and a half, actually, with different people to try and get it going. It's proved frustrating, to put it mildly. So we need someone to work with to actually do the packaging and so forth. And we test the recipes, have something that's tasty. We got some done, actually. I was just talking to my daughter this morning, who's got she's got a little beautiful little 18-month daughter. She's so cute, Cassie. But we're talking about this sort of stuff, and we've done some of this Jim's Healthy stuff, just some initial ones. and she's got this vegan bolognese stuff because they're vegetarians. And he says it's wonderful. I love this stuff. It really tastes good, and we want more of it because we got some stored up. But, what about more of it? So we're just discussing this. How can we get different recipes together? How do we get different, because you could have different varieties. But that's exciting, actually. To me, food is interesting, but I'm only interested in the health side. We're actually wanting to set up a cafe at our conference center. The problem with getting the council to agree to anything is really difficult. Takes months and months to get anything done. Bloody government, local governments. Anyway, so when we do that, we've got a healthy food cafe, and I'd like to do that and then introduce this thing about, and then also in our conference center, we've got a really nice sporting complex too. So you want to run health retreats. So anything to do with health gets me interested. My wife says it's probably not a big earner, and I say yes, but I love this stuff.
Well, you'll be surprised. I've got a lot of people that are in the health space now, and it seems to be the trend. And longevity, if you can look after your health, especially after a certain age. I know for me anyway, like I eat, and it's just piling on. And if I don't exercise or I don't watch what I eat, I will probably be on 100 kilos easy. So, people need to get onto some kind of longevity diet, eating well. So you're onto something, Jim.
Well, look, what's the value of an extra 10 years of healthy life? What price would you put on that?
Yes.
I know you can get cheap stuff like macaroni cheese from the supermarket, but, if you could eat in a way that's going to give you an extra decade of healthy, active life, would you be prepared to spend an extra few bucks for a meal? I think a lot of people would. I'm not saying everybody would, but some people would say, yes, health is important to me. It's the Heart Foundation guidelines. You just got to look at that: sugar, salt, vegetables, and also you can eat fruit as well.
Yeah.
That's basically my principle. 5 serves, 75 grams of vegetables every day plus fruit. At least 2 serves. I usually like a lot more than that. I also do 16/8 fasting. I don't eat before about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the day. So you put that together, and I don't have any problem with keeping my weight down. I don't eat desserts, and I certainly don't have sweet drinks. But it's not difficult. I'm a little bit hungry in the morning sometimes, but I enjoy my food. I do well.
That's the key, right? You got to enjoy what you eat. You can't deprive yourself, but eat in moderation is what I say. So
yeah, people try to live off a lettuce leaf and stuff, and something they don't enjoy. You can't stick to it. You've got to have good, tasty, full meals. But to me, a really nice, I'm sort of quasi-vegetarian. I'm just a bit of seafood, but a really nice, like there's an Indian restaurant not far from here, which has really nice, like that pumpkin and eggplant and those kinds of things. I find that very tasty. And then you have that, and you have some fruit, and you have a few nuts like cashews,
walnuts, and
those kinds of things. And you can eat like that, and you can eat very pleasant, comfortable, full meals, not to bursting, but just sufficient. And it's an enjoyment. And food ought to be a social occasion too, because part of health is also having a good social life. So when you meet with family and you meet with friends and people from the church and so forth, that we eat together, and you got it all together. I mean, life should be very fun and enjoyable. And in fact, if you live a really healthy, good lifestyle, what's best for your physical body is also good for your mental health too. And it's also good for enjoyment of life. Life should be enjoyable.
I totally agree with you. And I absolutely think that if you had to start all over again tomorrow with your franchise, with everything you've done to date, is there one thing that you would do differently?
No, not one thing. Many, many different things. I honestly didn't know what I was doing. Look, okay, just to give you a simple example, how do you support franchisees to make them successful? What's the best thing? Now, obviously one of the things you should do is you should sit down every year and go through the business with minute 5 tooth comb. Do a business development system. Where are you going to? How have you done? How can we improve it? Set a business plan, bang. Okay. Now we've tried that. Complete waste of time. Absolutely makes no difference at all. But you know what really makes a difference is when the franchisor picks up the phone regularly and rings the franchisee, even when the franchisee's rung them at least once a month, ideally once a week. And often it's a conversation. Hi, Bill, how is it going? How'd your daughter's wedding go? How'd you go with that difficult client? Just personal stuff as much as business advice. Keep in contact. When the franchisee has problems, then they've got someone, they've got a good relationship they can turn to. See, how would I know that? Also, I had no understanding how important meetings are. Meetings are really important, much more than you could possibly think, to the extent that if you don't give people regular meetings, they are significantly more likely to fail. So why meetings are important? It's a chance to learn about the business, which is obvious in a way, but it's also a chance to build connections, to have a community. And it's something we just didn't understand in the beginning. We didn't understand the value of IT. We didn't invest enough. We spent too much time worrying about lawyers and contracts and not enough time worrying about how you distribute work. We spend, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars developing IT systems. We should have started that a lot earlier and done a lot more.
Do you get out to see your franchisees yourself, or you have a team that goes and visits them? Was just more phone calls?
No, the responsibility is with the franchisors.
Yeah.
Local franchisors. And one of the lessons that I've learned is that we're better off not even being franchisors ourselves, because franchisors and divisional franchisors do the job better than we do. So we actually have some franchisees we look after directly. We're in the process of now trying to find people to look after them better. People who are close to them, who understand what they're doing, personal relationships, see them regularly. That's better than us trying to do it. What we're good at is things like IT, documents, customer service issues, franchisee service issues, that kind of broad everything. So it's important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
It's an interesting fact you said that, because my biggest, what I say I'm really good at is franchise sales, and I've been doing this for a long time. What I've noticed is that there's a lot of people out there that just don't know how to sell a franchise. And it's not, you don't have to be a good salesperson. It's just, like you say, connect with people, be able to have a good conversation with them and be able to guide them through the process. So over the years, I've built what we call a franchise sales accelerator program, where I can go in there and I help people to understand the process and to be able to give that service back to a franchisor or to the businesses. Someone once recently said to me, you should franchise that model. And I'm thinking, oh, but you're right, because then I can put those people in that area and it's personalized to that person or that client, as opposed to trying to combat everything from the one location. So you might be giving me some good ideas there, Jim. Thank you.
We have a saying in gyms, it's called selling by not selling.
Your
You
book?
don't sell a franchise, you grant a franchise.
Spot on.
Because what you're doing in that process of talking to somebody is you're trying to figure out what's in their interests. And sometimes that means you've got to say no to them, which is not common in the service industry. In fact, as far as I know, nobody else does it. I briefly employed a guy who used to work for Johnny King, it's the American commercial cleaning franchise. And I said to him, what did your bosses tell you? What were the criteria they gave you for accepting a franchisee? And his words to me were $50,000 and a pulse. That's literally
a wallet and a pulse is what I say. You don't need to have a wallet and a pulse to join the business.
Yes. And that to me is wrong, because if you're taking somebody's money, you should have a reasonable expectation that they're going to be successful. So if we had a case where a franchisor was doing that, obviously putting people on who were the wrong ones because they wanted to make money, we will get rid of them. Because it's immoral. And it's not even good in the long term for the system, because you put people on who are going to fail. They muddy the waters. They put people off. They say, oh, I joined gyms and it was useless. And well, really, the point is they shouldn't have been gotten in the first place. So you always got to be thinking of the person you're dealing with, which strangely enough, if you do that, you actually end up with a lot more franchisees than if you just take on anybody who's got the money. Because it is a very peculiar policy of it as it's very heavily, when I do franchisor training, which we do every quarter, this is for new franchisors, the first session I give on the Thursday morning is why you must be selective. And I will talk to them for an hour about why it's so important to do it. And then I talk about how you select. And then they go on about how you support and the other sessions and stuff. But the first thing I say is you must be selective, because if you don't care about the person you're dealing with for their own sake, then you shouldn't be a franchisor with us. So it's a very strong cultural thing. And it comes from me, and we emphasize it all the time. It's like this guy I was talking about, the one who was discouraging a franchisee from claiming pay-for-work guarantee, which is a really serious offence in our system. And I let him know, and his divisional know, that he was not doing the right thing, and he has to lift his game or he will not last.
And that is spot on. It's a cultural thing. It's a leadership thing. And you're spot on with saying that if they cannot support the right franchisee, it's not about money. It's not about having a pulse or like I say, wallet and pulse. You really need to either get them to self-select themselves out, because money is not a big driver. It's got to be what's motivating them to get out of bed every day. And it's usually their families. It's usually, I'm doing this because of my family. I'm doing this because I want something to leave for my family. And the supporting, that's huge in my business. Actually wrote my book just recently and just released it. I was the #1 best author for at least about 2 weeks, but I'll still claim that. And it was a fascinating exercise to do that. But I spoke about my journey over the last 10, 15 years of getting into franchising, the mistakes I made. Please try, if you get a chance to read it. It'll be much appreciated to hear from you and your feedback. So I'll send you a copy as a gift.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And thank you very much for your time today, Jim. I was really entertaining. I really enjoyed our chat, and I look forward to, hopefully I can come to Melbourne and see you in person in your office.
Well, we'd love to see you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Let's Talk Franchising. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, diving into franchising with me. If you've got something valuable out of this, do me a favor, hit subscribe, leave a review, and or share with anyone who you feel could do really well with listening to this. Got any questions or ideas for future episodes? Send them my way. I'd love hearing from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and of course, keep talking franchising.